Welcome back at kung first time ninyo, welcome. This is Podcast Conversations on Philippine History, Politics, and Society. We are your hosts. I am Lee Candelaria.
I am Vecal Porha.
At ako si Joselito Ebro. Isa na namang episode dito ng ating season na Bagay-Bagay, Objects of Philippine Life.
And today we're talking about something very important, I think very central no, sa Filipino life. In fact, I think around 94% of Filipinos interact with this thing regularly. And it generates 8 billion pesos in sales every year. Na feeling ko medyo maliit kumpara sa mga flood control projects, no?
Tama, lalo na't sabi ng data, 1.3 million of them are scattered across the archipelago. Sobrang dami. So para yung isa kada 85 Filipinos.
At ito nga ay yung sari-sari store. Yung maliit na neighborhood shop na makakabili ka ng candy, sachet ng shampoo, at kahit sa oras pa ng gabi yan, no? Sobrang convenient.
Yes, at ang nakaka-amaze dyan, no? These stores account for 70% of all manufactured goods sales in the Philippines. So 7 out of every 10 products sold pass through these little stores.
At yung fascinating pa dyan, kasi yung word na sari-sari, di ba? Ang ibig sabihin niya like variety. But these stores trace their roots all the way back to pre-colonial barangay trading systems.
Ayan. So ngayong araw, dadali namin kayo sa journey kung saan yung ancient barangay markets through Chinese mestizo tiendas of Spanish times hanggang sa digital revolution na nangyayari sa kasalukuyan. We'll explore bakit nga ba itong 75% ng mga tindahan na ito ay own ng kababaihan at paano yung tingi system ay nakaugat na sa ating cultural institutions. At panghuli, bakit yung mga stores na ito ay nagsusurvive hanggang sa kasalukuyan kahit marami tayong supermarkets at online shopping websites.
Hello. So to understand the sari-sari store, kailangan bumalik tayo ng mga 1,000 years. So William Henry Scott, an American historian na lumubog na rin sa Philippine Society hanggang namatay siya noong I think 1992. Sa kanyang napakahalagang libro na Barangay, 16th Century Philippine Culture and Society, dinodocument niya how pre-colonial communities of 30 to 100 families operated their own internal trade systems.
Yeah, at yung mga communities na ito, no, hindi naman random yung pagkakabuo nito, no. In fact, around 1000 AD, there are already sophisticated trade networks operating, no, according ito sa research, of course, ni Laura Juncker. No? And each barangay had its own economic system where the datu controlled both political and commercial activities. People traded rice for fish, pottery for textiles, all within their immediate community.
At noon hanggang 1565, kung kailan nagsimula ang Spanish colonization sa Pilipinas, almost everything changed nga. And yung silver-based economy of the Spanish colonial government at that time attracted lots of Chinese merchants to the islands.
Yes, pero I think mahalagang tandaan at this point that Chinese traders had been coming to the Philippines for centuries bago pa dumating yung mga Kastila. So talagang yung economic connection natin o ng pre-colonial Philippines ay daang taon na talaga. Ganun siya katagal. Pero sa konteksto ng colonial government, very fascinating yung sistema na nabuo na tinatawag na Parayan. So yung isang historian na specifically nag-specialize sa history ng Chinese in the Philippines, si Edgar Wickberg, he wrote about this in his seminal book, The Chinese Mestizo in Philippine History. So at the time, the Spanish basically segregated Chinese merchants sa mga specific na area lang. Pero pinapayagan pa rin silang makipagkalakal or makipag-trade. So yung idea ay they did not like the Chinese to be assimilated in society. Pero kailangan kasi nila yung trade ng particular segment ng population na to.
Yeah, and maraming talagang restrictions no sa Chinese community. Like, they could not own land, they could not marry freely, but there's one thing they can do. They can trade, no? So what happens? They start having families with local women, para in a way, no, makapag-own sila yung family nila ng land, no? And they assimilated and they created this new social class called the Chinese mestizos.
Yun nga. At lumago itong by the late 1700s na ayon nga sa libro ni Richard Chu na Chinese or the Chinese and Chinese Mestizos of Manila, Family, Identity, and Culture, 1860s to 1930s, na naging dominating ang mga Chinese mestizos sa interprovincial trade na ito. So, they operated small shops called tiendas, which were basically, ito yung ancestors ng ating modern sari-sari stores.
So, tienda, ano lang yun, like Spanish lang for
Tiendas.
shop. Like, diba? So, sa isang recent study by Tina Clemente na tinawag niyang How the Chinese in the Spanish Philippines Negotiated Commercial Boundaries in Colonial Economy, ipinakita kung gaano kagaling itong mga Chinese merchants in terms of working around colonial restriction. So, sinicircumvent nila yan. So, halimbawa, since like they could not compete with Spanish merchants in international trade, nag-focus sila sa local distribution. So, gagawin nila, they'd buy goods in bulk from Manila, tapos itatransport nila sa mga probinsya, tapos doon, ibibenta nila in small quantities that regular Filipinos could afford.
At medyo familiar yung sistema, no? Kasi ito talaga yung parang ginagawa rin ngayon na tingi system, no? I think isang folk explanation sa origin nito ay itong tingi daw ay pinaikli or pinagsaming words na konting hingi, no? Which means asking for just a little, no? Instead of selling a whole jar of oil, for example, they would sell it by the spoonful, no? So instead of a bar of soap, they would cut it into smaller pieces. Of course, it's I think mga ano lang yan, parang folk story lang yan, no? Of mahilig tayo sa mga ganyan eh. But it kind of makes sense.
Pero uso nga yun before, no? Parang hinahati yung mga nabibili natin sa tindahan. Minsan pa nga gamot, hinahati. Ewan ko, napanood ko lang sa TV. At yun nga ang tinatawag din na ay ang tingi system na yun. Yung parang credit system. No? Chinese mestizos introduced this practice of utang or store credit, wherein yung pwede kang bumili ng bigas ngayon at bayaran mo sa mga susunod na araw. So, trust became the currency.
Tama, So, I'm sure sa mga local na sari-sari store, yung mga sari-sari store sa neighborhood, yung may listahan kayo dyan, di ba? Tapos, siyempre yung mga pwede lang magkaroon ng listahan dyan, yung mga taga doon.
Yes.
Di ba? Alam nila saan ka naman pupunta, di ba? At yung kumbaga suki na. Maganda yung isang study ni F. Landa Hocano dito eh. Sabi niya, yun daw sistemang ganito, hindi lang natin siya inadapt sa Chinese commercial practices. Kasi yung ganon ay it also is very similar to the indigenous Filipino concepts of community and reciprocity. 'Di ba? So, ang sabi ni Hocano, the barangay spirit of helping your neighbor combined with the Chinese business acumen.
Although, of course, I would also say na these are kind of universal values naman. I mean, community reciprocity, we also find that in other cultures as well. Anyway, the American period from 1898 to 1946, in a way, supercharged this model, no? Ayon kina Alfred McCoy at kay Ed De Jesus, no? Sa kanilang work na Philippine Social History, Global Trade, and Local Transformations, it is through these projects, infrastructure projects ng mga Amerikano sa Pilipinas noong early 20th century, yung pagbibuild ng roads, bridges, railways, it suddenly connected isolated communities to larger markets.
At resulta nga niyan yung pagbaha ng mga manufactured goods. Kasama na dito yung canned goods from America, textiles from Britain, at maging yung posporo from Sweden. And sari-sari store became the endpoint of this global supply chain, yung last link between international commerce and the Filipino household.
But these stores, talagang dumami sila after ng World War II. So sabi nung ekonomista na si Gerardo Sicat, the GDP of the Philippines dropped by 70% by 1945, the year when the war ended. So dahil dito sa pagbagsak ng GDP, pagbagsak na ekonomiya essentially, tumaas yung presyo ng mga bilihin. At particular na dyan, yung bigas, which alam naman natin kung gaano kahalaga para sa ating lahat, di ba?
Yeah.
So, so suddenly, yung mga Pilipino na, siyempre, yun yung staple natin, hindi na nila ma-afford. Essentially became a luxury.
So, still, people needed to survive, no? At isa nga sa mga paraan para makasurvive noong mga panahon na ito, after ng digmaan, no, ay yung mga micro-enterprises, gaya nga ng mga sari-sari store.
So tingnan naman natin ngayon kung paano yung bawat era or periods in Philippine history transformed the sari-sari store in its unique ways.
So, nung panahon nga ng mga Kastila, halimbawa, merong mga tinatawag na mga tienda. At itong mga tindahan na to, strictly regulated sila. Store owners needed licenses and they paid taxes. And Spanish authorities controlled what products could be sold. Chinese mestizo families like the Tambungkos and the Limsipings, sila yung isa sa mga unang bumuo or nag-build ng commercial dynasties. At nagsimula yung mga yan sa isang tindahan lang.
Yeah, oo. Interesting no na Spanish pala yung roots talaga nitong mga tindahan na medyo Chinoy ang mga nag-pioneer. But I think it was also during the Spanish period when this idea of fiestas were introduced, no? So every barrio had a fiesta, every religious celebration meant tataas yung sales. And store owners would need to stock up on special items, especially geared towards the celebration, no? At dahil nga din doon, bawat bahay usually nagluluto, maghahanda. So itong mga stores would extend more credit to them knowing that celebration meant more consumption.
At sa pagdating nga ng mga Americans noong 1898, dala rin nila yung bagong filosofiya nila. Well, alam naman natin na free trade and open markets. So yung mga American products suddenly flooded into the neighborhood stores like Carnation Milk, Quaker Oats, and Ivory Soap.
Pero bukod pa dyan, yung mga Amerikano, they introduce something na bago. At ito yung product packaging. So dati kasi, yung mga pagtitinda ng mga bagay, ano siya, parang kinikilo, tinatakal. So they were sold loose. So basically, bibili ka ng, halimbawa, bigas, kikiluhin, or asukal, halimbawa, di ba? Or kahit sabon, puputulin, di ba? So ganun siya. So pagdating ng mga Amerikano with their goods, pinauso nila yung ganong klaseng pagbebenta. So I think pinapakita rin nun yung pag-increase ng manufactured products sa market, di ba?
Yes.
So ngayon, yung mga produkto na to, nakabox na, nakalata, nakabote, di ba? With brand names and fixed prices.
I think dito talaga magsisimula ma-shape yung kung paano natin na-imagine kung ano yung itsura ng sari-sari store, no? Kasi syempre yung mga walls ngayon lined na yan ng different colorful packages, may mga glass displays na makikita mo yung mga candy, mga garapon, may mga metal signs advertising Coca-Cola or you know, products like Magnolia ice cream and so on, which started of course much later, no, in the advent of refrigeration around 1920s, 1930s.
At noon ngang World War II, no, December 1941, napasailalim tayo under Japanese occupation. At nung panahong ito, no, for 3 years, it nearly destroyed the retail system. At I think na-emphasize din natin previously na during this time, uso talaga yung rationing, yung substitution ng mga goods, materials para makatipid. At kasi wala naman talagang supply.
Yes, pero yung kumbaga, I think very pinaka-amazing, pinaka-remarkable, yung mga tindahan, yung konting mga tindahan na nag-survive, they essentially became lifelines for a lot of people. Kasi dito sa mga maliliit tindahan na to, itago nila yung mga bigas from the Japanese inspectors, or secretly mag-distribute sila ng mga gamot, or kahit magpapasa din ng mga messages for resistance. So the sari-sari store owner at that moment in our history essentially became part of the underground economy of survival during wartime.
And then after the war, of course, the post-independence in 1946 until perhaps the 50s, the 60s, we will see that it will bring a boom, no? As the country rebuilds its economy, nag-stabilize naman ng economy, lumagong ekonomiya, lumaki ang populasyon, at syempre, kasabay niyan, lumawak yung urbanization. And by the 1950s, 1960s, every new subdivision, every expanding barrio gets its own cluster of sari-sari stores.
At noon ngang Marcos era, nung martial law from 1972 to 1986, it created and offered new dynamics para sa mga sari-sari stores na ito. Price controls, rice shortages, crony capitalism had an impact, no? To a point na store owners had to navigate between government regulations and black market realities.
And many stores became distribution points for controlled goods. Kasi sabi nila, if you had the right connection, syempre, makakaroon ka ng asukal kahit na panahon ng shortage. Pag mababa yung supply, di ba? Kung wala, your shelves stayed empty. So in this kind of like conditions, the Suki system na pwedeng sabihin natin na isang iteration ng patron-client relationship became even more important. Kasi yung loyal customers mo, basically, nakadepende sa iyo kung paano nila ma-acquire yung mga kailangan nila.
True. And then, of course, people power 1986 will change things again. Economic liberalization meant more products, and more products, of course, required also meant more suppliers, more competition. And this is when we first see convenience stores, no, like 7-Eleven entering the Philippines around the 80s too, no. Nagsimula, I think 1984 yung unang 7-Eleven store, but they really expanded after EDSA na.
At noon ngang 1997, kung saan nagkaroon ng Asian financial crisis, nag-drop yung peso from 26 to 46 against the dollar na hindi na talaga ata nakabawi. So, imported goods became expensive, pero yung mga sari-sari store adapted by focusing more on local products. So, breaking bulk items into even smaller portions, yun ng mga tingi.
Di ba dati yung mga yung mga shampoo, for example, diba? Palit ng palit yung packaging nila, like it's medyo interesting,
Nagiging tatlo, no?
di ba? Dati isang gamitan ngayon.
Yung 3-pack.
Tapos, Mike, ang interesting tingin ko na isipin ay yung mga sari-sari store natin, yung mga maliliit na suking tindahan sa mga kanto-kanto natin, kitang-kita kung paano sila naapektuhan ng mga mas macro changes, for example, in terms of economic policies. So, I mean, kung nagkakaroon ng mga pro-poor programs yung mga presidente, katulad halimbawa ni ERAP, yung mga tao, nagkakaroon sila ng pera, kumbaga, na ginagamit nila to purchase things. So, tumataas yung purchasing power ng mga tao. Nung nagkaroon ng expanded value-added tax nung panahon ni GMA, ni Gloria Macapagal-Arroyo, yan talaga yung yung naramdaman ng mga ordinaryong Pilipino kasi talagang tumaas yung bilihin. Like Jollibee, halimbawa, gasolina, pamasahe, at syempre yung mga nabibili natin, yung mga retail na merchandise. Tapos katulad nung pro-poor programs ni ERAP, isa sa mga interesting pa na nangyari nung panahon naman ni Noynoy ay yung conditional cash transfer program. Yung 4-piece, kasi yung 4-piece, it's just money. It's free money. And alam mo, ang daming mga tao na critical dito. Kasi parang sabi na, dole outs yan, or it makes the poor people dependent, or it's a band-aid solution. I don't think, that's the point di ba? Ang point nun ay dagdagan mo yung ability ng mga tao na bumili ng mga bagay na kailangan nila. Tapos malaking bagay kasi malaking bagay yung alam mong hindi humahaba yung listahan ng utang sa sari-sari store. Kasi may pambili ka ng mga pang-araw-araw na bagay. Alam nila na hindi nila kayang mabuhay dun sa 4-piece benefits na nakukuha nila every month. Pero talagang tanggal sakit ng ulo, di ba? And yes, yung mga ganong malilit na bagay that increase their purchasing power, nag-snowball yan into better economic conditions.
Oh, and di ba, conditional nga siya eh. So, yes, it's free money, but merong requirements. Kailangan mag-health center yung anak or kailangan magpumasok sa school yung anak and so on and so forth. And I think, tama ka, Victor, it gives people hope, no? Na pwede silang umangat sa buhay. No? And it gives them opportunities then later on. And I think magpapatuloy yung 4Ps, no? Yung Pantawid Pamilyang Pilipino program, even during the Duterte administration. But if there's anything that really had an impact on sari-sari stores during the Duterte administration, it's the drug war. No, yung war on drugs had an effect on sari-sari stores. Some sari-sari stores are open until wee hours of the night. Pero I think, of course, baka anecdotal ito, no. Pero a lot of these places started closing much earlier. So in a way, yung social function ng sari-sari store as a gathering place, especially for yung mga nagiinumang mga tatay, yung mga lasinggero, no, drinking in the evenings, it diminished within the communities.
Yeah. At I think makikita natin kung gaano na karami yung nangyari sa Pilipinas and how impactful these changes were in terms of like sari-sari stores. Pero andito pa rin sila eh, no? So, tingnan natin ano pa ba yung pwede nating makita dito. So, let's take a break at sa ating pagbabalik, pag-usapan naman natin kung ano yung ibig sabihin or meaning ng sari-sari store sa ating kultura.
Yeah, welcome back to podcast. We are talking about the sari-sari store. And, I think we have already established the sari-sari store is not just a place where you buy goods. No, it's so much more. Ayon nga sa research ni Nelson Turgo, no, sa Palawan, ito raw mga sari-sari stores ay nodes of partial surveillance. So in a way, everyone knows everyone's business through the store.
Tama, parang ito yung yung control center ng mga chismis.
Yes.
Yung chief headquarters ng mga marites, 'di ba? Nalalaman nila kasi yung everyday consumption 'di ba? So alam mo kung ano yung binili ni Aling Nena halimbawa kahapon, 'di ba? Or bakit hindi na bumibili ng beer si Paring Lito, yung mga ganyan. So 'di ba, like or baka tinatrack pa nila pwede na lang i-track yung yung menstrual cycle ng mga kamag-anak nila, kapitbahay nilang babae. Kasi sa sari-sari store din bibili na napkin, di ba? So, the store owner becomes somehow like chronicler ng neighborhood, di ba? Alam niya lahat. Para siyang like sage, gano'n. Yeah, so through the sari-sari store, through what they buy or they don't buy, at kung ano yung inuutang nila, o kung nagbayad na sila ng listahan nila, they would know who's struggling financially, sinong nakaluluwag-luwag, di ba? At kahit sino yung mga anak na may sakit, and so on.
Naalala ko nga, ninang ko yung parang nagtindera sa amin noon eh. So,
Ako din, same.
So, ganun kalaki yung
Kami, may tindahan kami dati. May tindahan yung lola ko.
So, marami kang inaanak. Hindi, joke. So sobrang interesting din yung physical structure ng sari-sari store. Kasi sabi nga nila, it bridges private and public space. So sa isang research from UP, it mentioned na yung stores daw are most integrated into family homes. So the counter might be a window of your house, your living room doubles as storage, and the children help serve customers while doing homework. So, talagang integrated siya sa Filipino family.
Yeah, actually, yung ninang ko nga na may-ari ng sari-sari store, one time, bumibili ako, kumakain sila ng lunch kasi yung mismong dining table nila nasa sari-sari store nila. So, parang nakakaabala pa ako sa inyo, no, na sa iyong family lunch, pero kailangan kong bumili ng something. But in a way, minsan na parang kumakain, syempre mag-aayay, oy, kain ka na, o ganyan, o magbibigay ng ulam and so on. In a way, no, I think this blurring of boundaries reflects the Filipino concept of the family extending into the community, no? Kasi yung customers mo, hindi mo lang yan suki, hindi lang sila buyers, they're also your kapitbahay. The store owner isn't just a merchant, she's your ate or your manang or your ale, no? So there are certain social relationships being established here.
Napansin niyo yung ginagamit natin na example dun sa mga tumatao sa tindahan, mga babae, 'di ba? Ate, manang, ale, 'di ba? Um, sa isang very recent na research ng Philippine Institute for Development Studies, in 2024 lang, sabi nila 75% of sari-sari stores are owned by women. And madaming sinasabi to tungkol sa lipunan ng Pilipino, kumbaga kasi itong mga tindahan na to, they serve as, kumbaga, vehicles for women's economic empowerment. Habang sila pa rin yung nagme-maintain ng household.
Yeah.
Diba? So on the one hand, people might interpret that as empowerment because it is, right? It makes them contribute actively in the household's income. Pero ano din siya parang manifestation din siya or realization siya ng double burden ng mga babae. Diba? Magpasok ka ng pera sa pamilya, tapos nagpa-perform ka din ng reproductive labor. Nag-alaga ka ng anak, make sure mo na may kakainin yung asawa at anak mo, nagtalaba ka ng damit, or, diba? And so on.
Naging focus din yan, nung ethnographic work ni Mary Reselis, wherein, sabi niya, women home-based traders shows how they navigate this dual identity. Business women calculating profit margins and even managing the inventory para sa pamilya nila. At pinakamahalaga, they're also mothers watching their kids, wives preparing dinner, and all from behind the store counter. So, busy talaga sila.
Sabi nga ng PIDS, yung Philippine Institute for Development Studies, there are 3 types of empowerment happening here. So the psychological empowerment, where women gain confidence and identity. Imagine how empowering it is, that you are able to earn for your family as well. Social empowerment, where they earn respect, being called ma'am, boss, by the customers, te, ale, ganyan. And of course, economic empowerment. I mean, with 78% contributing to household income and 16% becoming the primary breadwinner, yung mga may-ari ng sari-sari stores.
Yeah, so talagang makita na yung sari-sari store, I mean, from the perspective of those who buy from it, ng mga consumer, at kahit dun sa mga may-ari, sa mga proprietor, talagang it changes, kumbaga, or it heavily influences the way we live, the way we structure family, the way we cope, and so on. At yung isang example pa dyan ay yung development ng kultura ng tingi. So, sabi ng UP School of Economics, 71% of Filipino adults, syempre, nagpa-practice ng daily budgeting. Ibig sabihin, yung pagplano nila ng gastos nila, arawan. So, they buy what they need for today or maybe bukas. So, konting bawang, 3 itlog for that morning's breakfast, or mga 3 stick ng Yossi, 'di ba? So, tingi-tingi yung way nila ng pagbili.
So hindi siya issue or topic ng poverty majority. Although economics plays a part. Yung tingi reflects a worldview about consumption, freshness, and even yung community interdependence. Kasi bakit ka nga ba bibili ng itlog kung masisira lang siya sa mga susunod na araw, di ba? So, unti-untiin mo na lang.
Yeah, and I can relate to this kasi bilang laki sa urban areas, urban slums ng Manila, talagang dependent kami sa sari-sari store. Ninang ko nga yung sari-sari store owner. And I remember, buying something sa parang nowadays it would be so weird, like bibili kami halimbawa ng isang slice ng Dairy Cream, isa slice sa harapan namin yung Dairy Cream. Or bibili ako ng parang, ninang pabili po ako ng 2 pesos na toyo, as in 2 pisong toyo, itatrust ko na lang siya na ibibigay niya yung value na sapat dun sa amount na ibabayad mo.
Yung ba yung naka-plastic na toyo, Lee?
Hindi, may dala akong baso. Di ba sustainable? Or suka.
Oo nga.
Or suka. Or parang,
ang galing.
may dala akong baso, sabihin ko, magluto kaming adobo, 2 pisong toyo, 1 pisong suka, paghahaluin niya yun sa baso. Parang mga ganoon. And I grew up without, we grew up without a refrigerator, and I grew up not really knowing how to budget kasi we lived day by day. Mga malengke kami, bibili namin yung ingredients, magluto kami everyday. So it was a struggle being transitioning to becoming an adult, not knowing how to budget kasi you live by the day. And I think a lot of Filipinos experience that kind of financial, in a way it's a financial illiteracy, or parang may kulang sa financial planning kasi you live by the day. You know what you'll be consuming that day, and the tingi culture empowers that.
I mean, ang daming nagsasabi na, tipid pa rin kapag bumili ka ng bulk and so on. Lalo na kayo, di ba, yung mga uso na yung mga Costco, SNR. So,
Yes.
mas tipid, bumili ng bulk, blah, 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 blah. Pero hindi nila gets yun eh. Na hindi nila afford bumili ng bulk. Di ba?
Yes.
Yung pagbili mo ng shampoo, di ba? They would say na, isang gamitan. Ganyan. Hindi eh, napagkakasya ng buong pamilya yung isang
Yes.
pakete ng
Isang
shampoo
sachet.
di ba?
Correct.
So, I think it's a very specific way of consumption. And, coping mechanism siya, yes. Pero, I wouldn't, kasi kahit sa mga pure gold, halimbawa, pag pumunta ka sa pure gold, yung way nila ng pagbenta ng mga bagay, specifically, naka-direct sa sari-sari stores.
Yes, oo, tama.
So, I think that's really interesting.
Yeah.
Saka kung bibili ka ng bulk tapos isasakay mo ng tricycle, hindi ba parang sobrang hirap
Oo,
nun?
yes.
Extra hassle siya compared sa US for example, may mga sasakyan sila to use. And I think it adds also dun sa sa dynamics na meron tayo.
So talagang streamlined to the Filipino experience, like a typical family experience. Ganun din kapag nauubusan ng source of income, no, nangungutang, no. Ayon nga sa isang study ni Christine Bonin, no. This is kind of an old research around 2003, but it involved like women entrepreneurs in Metro Manila. Yung credit system daw ng sari-sari store, it functions as a way of retaining customers.
Yeah,
no?
makes sense.
Na parang i-offer mo yung, mas dito ka, papautangin kita para dito ka bibili. Huwag ka bumili dun kay Aling Nena, dito ka sa sari-sari store ko bumili. So, in a way, no, you retain customers, but at the same time, you have this informal insurance mechanism that when a rainy day comes, you have a store where you can get your needs, and you also build social capital.
Yeah, 100%. I agree kasi yung suke, di ba? Hindi lang naman sa sari-sari store din ngayon. Kahit sa mga palengke, di ba? Magkakakilala na sila, kumbaga. Tapos, yun nga, dahil personal, at a personal level, kumbaga yung relationship nyo, kapag kunwari, hindi mo nagustuhan yung binili mo, pwede mo ireklamo. Di ba?
Yes.
Madaling palitan.
Oo, pwede mong papalitan. Ayun, yung mga ganon. I think yung retention ng customer hindi lang dahil sa hindi lang bunga ng negotiation na dito ka bumili, pautangin kita. I think kasi kapag pinautang ka niya, yung feeling mo, 'di ba? Kind of like medyo beholden ka sa kanya na dito na ako bibili.
Yes.
Parang you have my business, like kasi considerate ka, na consider mo yung sitwasyon ko.
I think isang malaking challenge sa ating sari-sari stores, no, na I think unimaginable sa previous generations ay yung pinaka-obvious, no, yung 164 million plastic sachets na kino-consume daw sa Pilipinas daily, no, ang laking source niya ng basura.
So, nung 2023, Packworks business intelligence data shows that 70% of sari-sari store inventory turnover comes from sachet products. Diba? Kasi nga, tingi, diba? Sachet ng shampoo, stick ng kape, diba? Kahit yung mantika, dati binibili yan ng, nakabote nakarepak sa gin bilog bottle. Diba?
Yes.
Pero ngayon, binibenta na rin nila ng
Plastic.
nakapack, naka-tetra pack, diba? So, mga single-use plastic yan. And yeah, so ang interesting dito ay yung proposed na Extended Producer Responsibility Act. Ito yung, kumbaga, it aims to kind of like change this entire business model.
Sabi nga nila, 36% of global oceanic plastic waste ay galing sa Pilipinas. At malaking part nun ay galing sa sachet. So, alternative packaging remains unscalable for micro-retail. Pero paano ko nga ba makakabenta ng affordable shampoo to someone na may 20 pesos lang without sachet, no? Or without plastic?
Yang mahal kaya ng bote ng shampoo.
True.
Diba? Tapos, pag napasobra ka ng lagay, may
Sayang,
babalik mo
sayang.
ba yun habang naliligo ka? Diba? I mean, in a way, we can say, no, na lofty yan, yung ganyang sustainability conversation. Pero it's kind of removed from the reality
Yeah, at sinong
of
nababurden,
individuals.
diba?
Yes.
Sino yung pinaka tumatanggap ng ganong klaseng burden? Like, You know,
Yes,
I mean,
consumer.
okay, the Philippines contribute to oceanic waste like a lot, but you know, we don't spill oils.
Correct.
You know, our industries
Diba?
don't burn coals, you know.
Yeah, anong bansa ba ang yumaman dahil sa coal? 'Di ba? Balikan natin ang kasaysayan kung ganyan lang ang usapan. Sino bang yumaman sa coal? Tas ngayon, biglang bawal na ang coal kasi hindi
Binabaha na kayo ngayon.
anti-environment na. Oo, parang, ano mo yun?
Oo.
Ay, nakakainis yung sustainability, kasi talagang malinaw yung global north-south divide dyan eh. No?
Saka walang accountability eh. Di ba?
Yeah, accountability. Isa pang challenge sa mga sari-sari stores, yung digital transformation, and I think lumalakas na sa Pilipinas yung digital payments. I'm not sure if it's as big as like 60% adoption na for micro enterprises, kasi nung nakaraang nasa Pilipinas ako, hirap pa yung 7-Eleven sa GCash, parang laging hindi available. No? Pero nowadays na parang kahit mga sari-sari stores sa maliliit daw sa probinsya, may mga pa QR codes na raw for payment. And hindi ko lang sure kung confirm to pero I could imagine it. Even the corner store has joined the digital economy.
Yung napansin ko actually nung umuwi din ako, kasi yung 7-Eleven parang generic QR sila kasi iniscan nila, di ba? Tapos hindi yung nag-work madalas. Pero kapag bumili ka nga sa mga tindahan, tapos babayaran mo sila ng ikaw yung kukuha ng number to pay them through GCash. Mas effective eh. So in a way, mas reliable pa yung GCash ng mga sari-sari store kaysa ng mga convenience store like 7-Eleven. Tapos yung transition na to, syempre, napabilis yan nung pandemic.
Yes.
Isang financial sustainability research noong 2023, which surveyed like 46 permitted stores, found that adaptation strategies, including COVID-related product sales, repackaging into smaller quantities, and online selling trials, enabled survival.
So, Packworks tracked 175,000 stores actively using digital platforms in 2024. Tumas pa yan, to 32% from 2023. Now, store owners who couldn't use smartphones before COVID became digital entrepreneurs by necessity. Kasi kailangan talaga nila mag-adapt.
And what's interesting here is that despite all the competition, kasi alam naman natin maraming pwede nang bilihan ngayon, di ba? May mga grocery, hindi na yung malalaking groceries, may mga mini grocery na nga may convenience stores, dumadami rin. I think may Lawson na nga sa Pilipinas, hindi ko lang sure. Convenience stores, I think, is growing year on year, 17%. Shopee, 57% traffic share. Lazada, 35%, delivering even to remote barangays daw. But sari-sari stores are still increasing. Their market share of fast-moving consumer goods are still increasing. At sa ngayon, contemporary debates now center on formalization over flexibility. Kasi marami sa mga sari-sari stores, part yan ng shadow economy. Hindi naman sila registered. They don't really pay business tax.
Uy, nagbabayad.
Hindi lahat.
Sa amin, barangay level, may permit.
Dapat, diba, may permit yan per local
pero
government.
merong iba na talagang very informal. Very informal economy.
Sin shack lang, no?
Yeah, oo. Kasi nga bahay-bahay yung anuhan dito yung usapan dito So, bilang I used to work for the DTI, isang program dati talaga is to promote yung idea na we will support you. You can have access to loans if you register, parang ganon. Grants, mga ganyan. But of course, formalization, in a way, destroys exactly what makes them work, kasi paano mo tataksan halimbawa yung utang, yung nangutang paano ka magbabayad ng tax? Parang, yung utang collectible, hindi pa nagbabayad yung pamilyang to. Kumbaga merong informal, flexible, community responsive character yung sari-sari stores that is, I think, quite incompatible with the idea of formalization in the formal economy.
Tama, Kasi, parang the way, for example, sari-sari store owners give consideration to certain suki. Depende case-to-case basis di ba? Kasi may idea ng compassion tsaka empathy na alam nilang hirap sa buhay itong pamilya to, sige, hindi mo na kita sisingilin. Yung mga ganon na, yun nga, tama sila, mahirap i-capture ng mas formal way of doing things. At hanggang kayo, pinapakita halimbawa, merong recent study from 2022 lang na yung microfinance hanggang ngayon still crowds out informal money lenders and family lending. So, maraming lumalapit talaga dun sa mga nagpapautang. At ginagawa yan madalas yung mga sari-sari store owner, yung side hustle nila.
Yes, oo.
Manila, yan. Yung problema dyan, yung 5-6, yung sistema. So, mataas yung interest.
Usurious, no? Oo.
Oo. So, kaya lang, syempre, kapit sa patalim, diba? Kasi ang ano pa doon, ang difference pa doon, very accessible kasi. Ano ba, kung utang ka sa bangko,
Yeah.
kailangan may bank account ka, di ba? And daming Pilipino walang bank account. Kung dyan lang sa kanto, di ba? Alam ng buong barangay kung sino yun ng top of 5-6.
Hindi kailangan ng ID.
Yes.
Para lang.
Hindi kailangan collateral.
Tiwala ang usapan dito.
So, yun nga, sa panahon ng ng ditong digital age, yung Gen Z might prefer ordering online, especially going to air-conditioned convenience stores. Pero research shows na even young Filipinos still visit sari-sari stores like 18 times monthly. Lalo na sa panahon na kailangan nila ng mobile data kapag nawawalan sila.
Classic, no? Dati, pupunta ako sa sari-sari store para bumili ng ISP Bonanza, yung para sa dial-up internet, no? O kaya magpapaload.
Hindi ko naabutan yan. Parang medyo luma.
Sinungaling ka. Or hindi mo magpapaload ka. So, dependent ka rin sa sari-sari store. Nagpapatuloy pa rin pala yan, no, hanggang ngayon. So, I think yung future, if we can imagine it, it's kind of a hybrid, no? Physical stores with digital payments, no? Traditional credit systems, pero baka pwedeng track na by apps. Community relationships, in a way, maintained by technology. So, the sari-sari store is not necessarily disappearing, it's evolving.
So from pre-colonial barangay markets to QR codes on wooden counters, yung sari-sari store really embodied Philippine resilience, adaptation, and community spirit across a millennium of change.
But as with anything, no, and everything, we should not romanticize things just because it's a signifier of our culture. There are real problems that we need to solve regarding this thingy culture and the way we are not perhaps being responsive to issues related to environmental sustainability. Anyway, next episode, we're cooling things down with something that's been bringing joy to Filipino childhoods for over a century at madalas naririnig natin sila sa kalye dahil meron silang bell.
Okay, so visit our website, podcast.org, for more episodes and information on the show. I-follow nyo rin kami sa social media para updated kayo kung may bago na kaming mga episodes. So that's it for today. Don't forget to support your local sari-sari store. And as always, have a good day.